Mickey?
Did you consider maybe following up with that customer, finding out why they chose the other customer?
We have, we've tried,
Okay.
the entertainment portion of it, we've tried that too.
What were you told?
Well, since the project hasn't started, they're not going to tell us until they actually send out all the contracts.
Really?
Right.
But you'll probably hear something like it wasn't your turn or something to that effect.
It really? Comes down to that? Huh. Anybody else have did we answer your, yes, sir?
I think relationships weigh very heavily on who gets the job and such. And if you take a distributor who is basically on the team for the contractor and will work, it's kind of get in their head to help them with the job, not just sell them the stuff. Look ahead if something's going to be delayed, be right on the ball, let them know it, so they can anticipate.
What's your name?
Delay. Gary Parker with
Where?
City Electric.
Okay.
And relationships are key. Perhaps you could store the material for the customer, or the price of wire is going up. You should buy it now instead of 2 weeks from now, because that could make a difference. And once they trust you, you're in a plan.
You're right 100%.
Yeah,
Let's talk-
adding to that though, it's a distributor relationship with either a gear rep or a lighting rep has a lot to play in that as well. Because if you work, because if you work well with a lighting rep, say, you might get an edge.
So the relationship goes all the way down the chain. I mean, you've got a relationship with the contractor. The contractors, the distributors have a relationship with the manufacturers. So let's talk a little bit about relationships, because in preparation for this this panel discussion, everyone on the panel agreed that no one is making decisions about purchasing based solely on price. Price is important. No one is going to dispute that. We're all in that game. But that is certainly not the only consideration. And overwhelmingly, what I heard from our panelists was it's actually not the most important consideration that the relationship is. And I would like to have each of the panelists actually just talk a little bit about that, because you were very passionate and you were very emphatic on the phone with me about the importance of the relationships and some of the things that you look for in a relationship. What defines a good relationship for someone who's making these purchasing decisions? I mean, we can all talk about how great relationships are, but what does that mean? What does that mean specifically? And some of you had some very specific examples of people who had like gone to the mat, or their terms are extraordinary, or et cetera. And I would like to you guys to share those same comments with the group, because some of them were extraordinary. So.
Okay. Well, some of the things that reps do for us is show us new products coming out, and tell us all about them, how they're used, and what benefits they are to not only us but the end customer. Because if we buy them and don't sell them, it's kind of useless. So first of all, we want to have a good relationship with the rep, to show these things to us and tell us what they do. And also there's a trust factor involved. Like the rep has to trust us. And
How do you establish trust?
by doing what you say you'll do.
Okay.
If you commit, you follow through.
Don't promise something you can't.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I found out anyway, that if you want success in a relationship with a rep, do what you say you're going to do.
What happens when you can't? What happens when you said you're going to do something, but you can't?
Own up
How do you,
to fix it.
I was going to say, how do you maintain the relationship and the trust when you gave your word, that was important, someone was banking on that word, someone was banking on that agreement, and things beyond your control have affected that?
You do what you can to ease that problem.
Mike?
Well, you remedy the situation, whether it's air shipping the proper product, getting them the proper product, making it up on another job, some way of doing it, some way of monetarily fixing the problem, unless it was a lie or something like that. I don't know how you fix something like that. Yeah. So that's the problem. You just got to be straightforward with people. But I think that, none of us need any help looking bad. We need help looking good. So when a contractor calls us and asks us for a product, and we say we have it, and because the factory said they had it, and then you don't know about it until the guy's calling saying, I'm on the job and I don't have it, that's a problem. Now, if we place an order with a factory and they send us an acknowledgement saying, we thought we had this, we don't have this, this is what we have, this is what we have, and you can communicate that back to the contractor, he can plan ahead. Or she. And that's the huge part of it, is that communication again and partnering with them. Or if you have more than one wiring device manufacturer in stock and a guy orders something and you didn't have enough of them, you switch it over to the other one, even though it costs a little bit more, but he's not on the job with men, ready to do the job and can't do it. You just try to communicate and partner and do what you can with it and be smarter about it.
Michael, you want to chime in on something there? Michael? Michael disagrees with something?
Not that I disagree, but I have a completely different perspective of this.
Bring it.
I'd like to use your easel here real quick.
In this market, the distributor is nothing but a channel to market. That's all it is. You got the manufacturer really at the top of the food chain. They produce what we have to install. And then it comes down and they have agents, manufacturers reps like Square D, Siemens, etc. Over here you've got your lighting agents, etc. These guys are calling on engineers, end users, and contractors. So coming from manufacturer, you got your agent, your rep. So they're calling on me, they're calling on end user, so it's contractor, end user, making deals. Distributor, a lot of times, is here by himself. So we're making these deals outside of the distributor, even though this is the guy that's going to finance my job. All right? So they got this, we're cutting a deal for manufacturing plants, small manufacturing plants, cutting a deal with the rep saying, hey, you got a great product, I like it, it will help us out. So what can you do for me if I buy 100,000 of the user, or on this lighting project, we put it together, we save the owner some money, what can we do? So we put all this together, and then all of a sudden they say, well, okay, you got the job, which distributor do you want to run through? So that's when we go, all right, today we're really happy with CE, or today we're really happy with Great Bar, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's our channel of marketing, so we're going to send it to them. In this, all these conversations about stuff that's taken out of the job or put back in the job, a lot of it doesn't get conveyed to the distributor who is financing the job for me. This is a problem.
Whose job is it to communicate with them?
See, this is where it's getting convoluted, and all these people are very necessary. The agents are incredibly necessary because the distributor doesn't have time to call on the engineer, doesn't have time to go see every end user. Right. Margins are so tight for everybody that this is tough. It's complicated, and I don't have a clear answer for it, but I wanted to put it out there. So we, as a contractor, say, okay, agent, put together the bill of material. We want to review it against the submittals, so that way when we give it to the distributor, we know it's what we want. So when we do that, we get one of the owners to come back and say, hey, we want to make a couple of changes. It doesn't always make it back through the food chain. And all of a sudden, we're putting together, we hand it to the distributor, we give them a PO, we're putting together a schedule to give to the owner, the general contractor. That's when it hits the fan. Well, that can't ship for 8 weeks, or that can't ship for this amount. Then they're mad at me. I gotta go back to the distributor, pound on the distributor. The distributor's gotta go back. Everybody's like, well, don't you have control of your distributor? And technically, it's really not his fault, because all the deals were made outside of him. He's just the channel.
But isn't that just a scenario?
It is one scenario.
But I don't think it's the majority of scenarios. I could be wrong, but I know that
It's a big issue.
well, if they're doing all that direct, then our brick and mortar that the distributor has, and all the material we have, and all the outside salesmen we have calling on people, and all the classes we do for training and everything else. What's up with that? I mean, is DC the only territory that does that? I mean, I'm not saying reps haven't brought in orders and factories haven't brought in orders before, and we appreciate that, but they better not be too low, and we better be making money, and we better be involved, and they better not make promises that we can't keep. So I find that odd, but maybe you guys can tell me differently.
And he just said something very interesting too, which is that in Florida, this is a huge problem. So is this some regional difference where in DC, that's not a problem, but in Florida?
I'm not saying that jobs aren't brought into a distributor and the contractor doesn't try to control it as much as he can. But we do everything we can to be in the middle of that. And we're not going to take the order without knowing all the details. At least we won't, as Dulles.
I think some of it depends on how strong the rep is in the marketplace too. If it's a lighting rep, Worcester, Mass, for example, we've got a lighting rep that's real strong in that market who walks the jobs in at the level, he dictates the level that you're gonna take it at.
Forget that.
And that makes it tough for us because we go back to him and go, I don't want a 5% order.
Every lighting order that comes over, every lighting quote comes over, we price it up our way and then we get their price. So we know what it is. And if you're not doing that, it's crazy.
Well, the tough part is, in the Worcester market, they own the market.
Because
So
they hold the spec, or-
The contractor, even if he messes up the job, the contractor will say, I'm not gonna deal with him again. And then next week, he's going, run this job through.
Is it
through this
because
rep."
brand X is getting spec'd or?
He's doing a good job at controlling the market. He's getting his stuff spec'd, and he's got the relationship direct with the contractor. dictating
That's
the
been
levels
going
of
on in
the job.
Florida for the last 30 years.
Are there any lighting reps in here? It's not like I'm going to shoot you, but I'm just saying that, lighting reps aren't the most favorite of most people. But anyway.
No, as you guys were talking, Michael just said that is a regional difference, then it's not that way in Florida. What would drive such a regional difference then? Like why are you having such a different experience than Pete and Mike?
I'm not saying we're not having, I'm saying he's just speaking of one scenario. It's not
But he's saying
it's not the
that
majority.
It's very typical for him, that in Florida is an ongoing issue or an ongoing business pressure or an ongoing, I guess, state of affairs.
Well, you're being a distributor in Florida and you being a distributor up north, I don't get that you don't, if brand X is doing that, take it to brand Z and say, let's write this order. I mean, why wouldn't you do that?
Because they're not spec.
But it's also the relation.
They're not
Specified.
They're not specified on the job.
Well, then they need to call the architect and engineer and get it accepted, and that's their job.
Well-
So when you get the package, when you get the lighting package of Joe's Pizza Parlor and brand X is spec, you notice I'm not saying Lithonia or Cooper or anything, but anyway, so they're spec. You call them and say, get on this job, get that architect to get to that engineer and get accepted, so you can have a choice B.
I think some of it has to do with how strong that relationship is between the rep and the contractor too. There's that part of it that the contractor's gonna say, I want that package. So,
Well, if you're gonna handle, 5% or less orders all day long that are brought in, it's not really a good thing.
oh, it's not. I'm not saying we do. I'm just saying that I agree with him that across the country, there's circumstances.
So what he's saying is that 99% of the lighting reps ruin it for all wrestling.
Well, I'll give you an example, and this doesn't really affect the contractor, but it does the distributor. And we stock certain brands, and depending on who at my company calls for a price on something, is whether they're going to get the right price or not. Now, that's not because we told them not to give them the right price. It's because they're making overage or giving them a higher price than we pay. And it's constant. And it's with the lighting vendors. You don't catch a commodities company or somebody doing that, or a material company. If you pay X amount for a widget box, that's what you pay for it. On a job, it could be less, I know. But if you're calling for an exit or a battery pack or a strip or this or that, and you stock them and you have hundreds or thousands of stock that you've sold at X price, they just give you a higher price because they can make the money. And it's just wrong. There's no ethics to it or anything else, I don't know.
Pete, you look like you got something.
Well, I was just gonna say, it's not, and I'm not picking on the rep because they've done a great job in developing that relationship to drive that business. That's all I wanted to say. It's not his fault.
Well, see, I get that. I get that if they're doing the spec work, then they should be able to make some money. But what I don't get is that I'm stocking it. I've built a building. I've staffed it. I bring the inventory in.
Yeah,
And
well,
I'm
well-
selling it, and I'm promoting it. And then a guy calls up because he wants 5 more of something that I don't have, and he gets jacked on the price. and he gets embarrassed when he gives the price to the contractor, and then it blows up, and then I get involved, and then we say, oh, he messed up, now it's right. Well, everybody knows it takes a lot of attaboys to make up a no shit. And I'm just saying, it's,
Well, if you're stocking something, if you've got their product line on your shelf, then you should get the price.
certainly. I agree, but that doesn't happen. Quite often it doesn't with the lighting people. You really got to watch them, and that's why I said every lighting package that comes over, we look at every product and we know what it's worth pretty
Because
closely.
that's why we stock certain lines, so we have
And
access
again,
to
the
the
relationship
jobs.
and the trust and everything else,
Yeah.
and I'm having meetings here where they're like, how can we grow our business? I don't know, I don't want to say fire your rep, but make your rep do right,